Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so this is one of those deep dives that might just hit really close to home for some of you. This is really for you if you're someone who loves deeply, but, well, lately you find yourself living more quietly. Maybe you used to be so open, so emotionally available, but now you feel a little shut off. Not told, definitely not uncaring, just tired, maybe hesitant, a bit unsure how to be soft when honestly the world keeps showing you that softness can be, well, dangerous. We're going to talk about that quiet stillness, the one that can settle between people. You probably know the feeling. Maybe it's the text you type out and then you pause and you just don't send it. Or that I miss you that gets written, deleted, rewritten, and then deleted again. Or, that really long pause, that hesitation, before you can answer honestly when someone asks, are you okay?
Yeah, and it's really, really important to understand this. It isn't about a lack of desire for connection, not at all. It's more like, the language of real closeness, of deep intimacy, feels like something you've forgotten how to speak, almost like a lost language. So today, we're really going to explore that emotional distance. We'll look at how guardedness becomes like a fortress.
Right.
We'll talk about vulnerability fatigue, that sheer exhaustion, and, what it actually means when that slow erosion of closeness starts happening in your life. Our mission, really, is to uncover maybe some surprising truths behind why we retreat emotionally and, crucially, how we might find our way back to connection.
Okay, let's definitely unpack that. Because nobody builds a fortress, like, instantly. It doesn't happen overnight. This kind of guardiness, this emotional wall, it starts subtly, doesn't it? Like one small brick at a time.
Exactly. Our sources really point to these initial moments, these often quite painful experiences that kind of get etched into us. Think about it for a second. Maybe there was a time you really opened up, shared something vulnerable, and the other person they just changed the subject.
Oof, yeah.
Or maybe your pain was met with just silence, nothing. Or maybe a conversation where you were honest, truly honest, and that vulnerability was somehow used against you later.
That's a tough one.
It really is. Or even, the experience where the love you counted on, the love you needed most, just wasn't there when you needed it. These aren't just random bad moments. Psychologists sometimes call them relational microtraumas.
Microtrauma.
Yeah, or micro-abandonments. They're like these small, repeated instances where your emotions aren't met or they're invalidated. And they add up. They really chip away at your feeling of safety in relationships.
And that's where it gets really impactful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because after things like that happen, closeness it just doesn't feel safe anymore. So what do? Well, you start self-editing, right?
Yeah.
You make your sadness seem smaller than it is. Maybe you swap out vulnerability for like a quick sarcastic comment, or you actively try to project this image of being, chill, detached, unbothered, even when deep down you're feeling the complete opposite. It's almost like you're building a version of yourself that can't get hurt.
And what's really fascinating and kind of sad is how these small things, these micro-abandonments, they genuinely contribute to this deep, almost automatic self-protection. The research shows how trauma, even these seemingly smaller kinds, can effectively teach us to become really self-contained, like an emotional fortress, as you said.
Right.
And there's often this turning point, it's subtle, where the original intention, which is valid, I need to protect myself, it slowly morphs into something else. It gradually turns into, I need to isolate myself. And the drawbridge goes up,
Yeah.
Not just keeping out danger, but eventually keeping out everything.
So maybe a question for you listening right now is, when did protecting yourself start to feel less like safety and maybe more like a prison? Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about how these walls affect friendships. Especially those deep, slow burn kinds of closeness. You remember how it used to feel, right? Maybe texting all day, every day, making plans easily, sharing pretty much everything without even thinking about it.
Yeah, and contrast that with how interactions might feel now. Often they become much more surface level. It might be like just sending memes back and forth, a quick like on a post, or maybe those promises of let me know when you're free, but nobody ever actually follows through. It's not just busy lives, is it? It feels like a real shift.
Definitely.
And some experts call this friendship fatigue. It's that deep exhaustion, that comes when you feel like you're consistently showing up, putting in the effort, but you're just not getting that same energy back. It's not being matched. It feels one-sided.
Like watering a plant alone, like you said earlier.
Exactly. Your arm gets tired eventually.
And this can lead to this really weird, awkward limbo state. Like there's no big fight, no obvious conflict, but there's this profound lack of connection with people who, still say they care about you. And that brings up a really confusing kind of grief, doesn't it? Feeling distant from friends who are technically still there, plus maybe some guilt too. Feeling like you're the one who's emotionally unavailable, even though your heart still feels full of love for them.
Which raises a really important point. If the love isn't actually gone, what has changed? It's often not about a lack of affection. It's more that the path back, the way to reconnect and find that easy closeness again, it just feels totally unclear, like the map's gone missing.
Okay, let's turn to romantic relationships now. Because there's a unique kind of loneliness, isn't there? The kind you can feel even when you're constantly with someone. You share a space, maybe a life, but that emotional intimacy just isn't there. The distance feels huge, even if you're sitting side by side.
Absolutely. And a key thing our sources highlight is this critical difference between time spent together and closeness actually felt. You can be around someone 24/7, manage all the logistics of life together, and still feel completely fundamentally unknown by them.
Wow, yeah.
And some relationships, honestly, they can survive, even thrive on the surface, mainly just on logistics and habit. You know, the shared calendar, who does which chore, the daily routine, it functions.
But it's not intimate.
Exactly. It might be a partnership, but not an intimate one in the emotional sense.
And often lurking underneath in these situations is this really pervasive fear of truly opening up, of being truly vulnerable. And this nearly always connects back to past experiences, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Times when being honest, being vulnerable, it just didn't feel safe. Maybe it even backfired.
Right. And here's something maybe counterintuitive that came up. Behaviors like over-explaining everything or constantly overthinking interactions, while you might think you're trying harder to connect or be understood, they can actually sabotage the natural flow of connection. It's paradoxical. You're so focused on getting it right, so afraid of being misread, that you accidentally create more distance. Like trying too hard kills the spontaneity.
Trying to explain a feeling perfectly and losing the feeling itself.
Precisely.
And all of this can lead to that feeling of just performing in the relationship. Not really being yourself, but playing a role. And that quiet question, the one that nags at you in the background. If I really show them all of me, the messy bits, the scared parts, the parts I don't like, will they still want me? Will they still stay? Which leads us perfectly into this really critical idea. Vulnerability burnout. And this isn't just feeling a bit tired. It's more specific. It's when you've been vulnerable repeatedly, especially when it hasn't been met or it's felt really one-sided. And you just reach a point of numbness, emotional numbness.
Oh, absolutely. And you know the effort involved, right? Anyone listening who's felt this knows you've done the work, you've shared, you've explained your needs, maybe cried, tried so hard to communicate like an adult, used all the right words.
Right. You've tried.
But after putting in all that effort, again and again, with very little coming back, at some point you just stop. You stop trying. And the research is clear. This isn't usually emotional laziness. It's not carelessness. It's born purely out of exhaustion.
The system just shuts down.
Exactly. It's like your emotional circuit breaker trips because it's overloaded and hasn't had a chance to reset or recharge. And bottling everything up starts to feel falsely like safety.
So let's make a few important distinctions here.
Yeah.
First, vulnerability becomes genuinely draining, maybe even harmful, when it's persistently one-sided. And second, there's a huge difference between being truly independent, which is healthy, and just being disconnected as a way to protect yourself.
Yes. And we also need to challenge that myth, that common idea that, oh, the real ones, your real friends or partner, they'll just get you without you having to say anything.
Right, the mind reader fallacy.
Exactly. It's just not how genuine connection works. It always requires intentional effort, some give and take from everyone involved.
Which brings us to maybe the most vital point here.
Yeah.
Being hard to reach, seeming emotionally unavailable.
Yeah.
It's so often a learned trauma response. It's not usually who someone fundamentally is.
Absolutely. It's a defense mechanism. It's that high wall built around a very sensitive core. It's not indifference. It's often just being so incredibly tired of putting yourself out there because in the past, the cost just felt too high.
Okay, so we've really dug into how these walls get built, the different ways this emotional distance shows up. And now let's shift towards hope, towards healing. This isn't about finding perfect, quick fixes, because those don't really exist. It's more about finding maybe a soft space to start again, a gentle starting point.
Yes. And the way back seems to be about small steps, micro actions, not huge leaps. Like, what would it genuinely look like to trust someone? Just a little bit more, just 1% more.
Okay.
Could you manage sending one text that's a little more honest than usual instead of just the standard emoji or I'm fine?
Maybe instead of fine, saying, actually, I'm a bit overwhelmed today.
Exactly. Or maybe just allowing yourself to be with someone physically present without feeling the pressure to entertain them or fill every single silence. Just existing together. These are like tiny steps outside the fortress walls, testing the ground.
So these are really practical, tangible things. Offering small, honest answers, extending gentle invitations for connection, maybe something low stakes,
Yeah.
and also just demonstrating consistent presence over time. Showing up, basically, even when it feels a bit scary, doing it in these small, manageable ways.
And a really powerful guiding idea that emerged is this. You don't have to tell everyone everything. That's overwhelming and maybe not even appropriate. But the goal should be to tell someone something real.
Just one person, one thing.
Yeah. And this also means consciously challenging that belief that closeness somehow equals weakness. It doesn't. Often, real strength, true resilience, is found in allowing yourself the vulnerability it takes to connect. And remembering that emotional intimacy, it's a skill, like learning anything new.
Like learning a language.
Exactly. It takes practice, it takes patience with yourself and others, it takes ongoing effort.
It really is a poignant thought, isn't it? That often the emotional distance you feel, or maybe the distance someone else shows, it's not actually a sign they don't care or that you don't care. It's so often a direct result of past hurt. It's because, somewhere along the line, closeness cost you more than silence did.
But maybe,
Yeah.
just maybe, listening to this, there's a tiny shift happening inside you. Maybe you're starting to feel just a little bit tired of pretending you don't need anyone. Perhaps there's a flicker of desire growing, and desire to trust again, to actually miss having those conversations that leave you feeling lighter afterwards, not heavier.
So, perhaps the thought is, maybe you'll try. Not because you feel totally ready. Maybe you're nowhere near ready. But maybe, just maybe, because you're willing. And perhaps right now that willingness is powerful. Maybe it's enough to start.
This really might be something transformative.